Welcome, everybody. Brian Rundle, Black and White with Brian Rundle and Lana Quest. It is the Thursday night show, which means Lana will not be joining me tonight because she does her own show called The Quest Show, and that will be starting at 8 o'clock. So I want to jump on a little bit earlier, try to get my show in right before her show starts. But, like I said, we're going to try to load up a little bit more content here and there as much as we can, but we obviously are always excited when you join us and when you go back and watch the clips and when you like and subscribe and all that stuff. That is very much appreciated. I know it doesn't take a whole bunch to just hit that subscribe button, but I get it too. Sometimes I'm going through things and I'm like, I don't want to subscribe to that, and I just kind of skip over it. But obviously what we need to do is we need to earn the reason for you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I hope we're doing it. We're obviously a smaller channel, but we're trying to grow as much as we can. I can tell you it is definitely not as easy to get the subscriptions as you think it might be. I used to do a podcast called Run's House Podcast. That's how I started. And I actually got it within the top 100 podcasts in the country. And, it was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of repetition and continuing to do it. I think I did a show 2 or 3 times a week. So, you were always doing things. And the funny part is just like a lot of people with podcasts, I started it during the pandemic. So you have so much more time during the pandemic. But then, of course, once everything started to get back to normal, life gets back to normal, you start to work more. And, so you kind of back off of it a little bit. But I continued to do it sporadically. And then that's when, obviously, I had the idea to do this YouTube show with Lana, because Lana had been actually, I'd call her a friend now at this point. She'd been a friend of mine for a long time, but that was because she used to come on my podcast. I had discovered her during the pandemic because she used to have a YouTube show, and I sent out my podcast out to her, and she responded back to me, said she loved it. So, I asked her to come on my podcast, and that's the story. And that's how we teamed up. But she will be doing her show, like I said, at 8 o'clock. So you could check that. So a few things that we're going to go over tonight. There's, I want to talk about our current president, Joe Biden. I want to talk about our future president, Kamala Harris. And I want to talk about the disgraced felon and liable rapist, Donald Trump. And then also, too, at the very end, I am going to answer some of the comments from MAGA people that are left on our in our comment section. There's always a lot of questions, and I get accused a lot of not, quote unquote, debating with them. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is because some of the stuff that they suggest or type or write out or whatever it is so convoluted and makes no sense that there's really no other way to respond to it other than being a smart ass or just goofing around with them, which I do a lot. And then a lot of it is just the same repetitive stuff over and over and over again. And I've answered it, but I get tired of answering the same question over and over and over again. So I'm going to do that here tonight. My guess is that, maybe they see it, maybe they don't, but I do want to answer the questions directly. But let's start with our current president, Joe Biden. First of all, Joe Biden continues to work. He is somebody that I've said this before, that when history continues and they write about Joe Biden in the history books, they're going to write about Joe Biden as being one of the best presidents that this country has ever seen, period. And I know, Nancy Pelosi was on an interview one time, and some people were saying jokingly, we're going to, wanted to put Joe Biden up on Mount Rushmore. Now, again, all right, if you want to argue with me whether or not he should be on Mount Rushmore, I'm not even going to try to have that argument. I'm not going to tell you that he needs to be on Mount Rushmore, but I will tell you that Joe Biden will be looked back as one of the best presidents in the United States of America. He did a phenomenal job. I'll answer those questions later on why I think he did. But, first, just recently, and this is something that he had worked on prior to, but now it is coming to fruition. The Medicare cut deals, or Joe Biden has just he worked out a plan with a lot of the pharmaceutical companies to lower their prescription costs, and now we have an idea of what a lot of these would be. The announcement caps Democrats' decades-long push to let the government negotiate directly with manufacturers with Joe Biden. And again, a lot of people have said they were going to do this, and Joe Biden actually did it. He actually came through with this. And a lot of these prescriptions that had been negotiated, I want you to listen to the differences between what they cost and what they're going to cost. The Jardiance is a diabetes drug. It is down 66%, down to $197. Another diabetes drug, Joinvia. I'm sorry, and you guys might know these better than I do, but it is a 79% discount, down to $113. And Tresto, it is a heart drug that is now $295. That's a 53% discount. Eliquis is a very popular one. I know a lot of people are on Eliquis because it's one of the blood thinners. $231, down 56%. And the list goes on. And this is just the beginning. So, the things that he has done over the years in just a short period of time, the fact that it's been literally ignored. I mean, it's been basically ignored, except for the people who truly follow this stuff. But it has been ignored, and it is not given the credit that it deserves. Joe Biden deserves way more credit as a president, and fortunately / unfortunately, he's going to get it, but it's going to come at a time that is later than he deserves it. And that's why, if people were really in tune with everything on how things work, on what's going on, what Joe Biden did, if you really cared, instead of just your gut feeling or just what you want to believe, if you really cared what was going on, then Joe Biden would have easily beaten Donald Trump. Easily. I still contend that he would have beaten Donald Trump. There's absolutely no question in my mind he would have beaten him. Now, from this point until the election, we might have been holding our breath a little bit. We might have been, even me would have been, please don't say anything a little bit off, because unfortunately, if Joe Biden says something a little bit off, the press explodes and they want to cover it like it is the worst thing that has ever happened. Donald Trump, obviously, we already know he can say whatever he wants. He can sound as goofy as he wants. He could talk about Hannibal Lecter and sharks and boats and electricity and windmills killing birds and all that stuff. And people just laugh it off and go, that's Donald Trump for you. And they kind of give him a pass. And there has been this idea for years that is the Democrats that always got the pass in the media. And see, that's, in my estimation, not how things have worked. How things work or have worked recently is the media gives the pass to whatever they feel is going to get them the most amount of clicks, what's going to get them the most amount of money. That's what they base their stories on. They don't base it on we're rooting for the Democrats. And I'm talking about the legacy media, the so-called mainstream media. They're not the propaganda machine for Democrats like a lot of people think that they are, or like the Fox News and the Newsmax and all AON. Those are propaganda machines. Those are 100%, 85 to 90% of the so-called news that comes out of those channels are all propaganda for Donald Trump, MAGA, and the Republican Party. But on CNN, MSNBC, hell, every day, I don't watch these channels, but I could go on Twitter, and every single day I hear people complaining about the people on CNN. And these are liberals, Democrats, leftists. They are complaining about MSNBC. Andrea Mitchell, I hear them. Katie Turr, I hear complaining about all the time. So, I think the difference is, like I said, you got one that's just looking to make money and get as much attention as they can. The other one obviously is already making the money because they have a lot of viewers, but they are a propaganda machine for the left. But again, if you really knew what was going on, if you truly paid attention to this, it wouldn't even be close between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Wouldn't even be close. But speaking of Joe Biden, he's going to be speaking at the convention which starts on Monday night, and I hope he gets the ovation he deserves. I hope he isn't able to talk for 10 minutes because he should get the ovation that he deserves. But he was recently in an interview, and this answer kind of broke my heart a little bit. Just listen to him talking about the process in which he made the decision to step down. And when he was talking to the interviewer, this is what he had to say, and then we'll talk about it after the clip.
The polls we had showed that it was a neck-and-neck race. Would have been down to the wire. But what happened was a number of my Democratic colleagues in the House and Senate thought that I was going to hurt them in the races. And I was concerned if I stayed in the race, that would be the topic. You'd be interviewing me about why did Nancy Pelosi say, why did so, and I thought it'd be a real distraction.
Yeah, again, A, that breaks my heart, but B, just for Joe Biden to say, look, if I'm getting enough people telling me that this could be a distraction in the race, even though I still think I win, I don't care what anybody says, I still think I win. But if you're saying that it's too much of a distraction, and even though I don't agree with you, I am going to do what you feel is the right thing for this, and I'm going to step aside because I don't want to be a distraction. I want the best for this country. I want the best for this party. And just for him to be able to do that, I mean, I've got a bit of an ego myself. We all have got some sort of ego. And for him to be able to do that is just adding to his legacy. Is his legacy, like I said, he saved this country once by beating Donald Trump. And I know to some people that sounds dramatic, but it's not dramatic. The fact that he basically came out of retirement to say, I am the only person that can beat Donald Trump at this time. And he was 100% right, went through and beat him by 7 million votes. He goes on and has one of the most productive presidencies in the first 4 years ever. In the history of this country, one of the most productive 4 years in the history of this country from any president. And then even beyond, even in spite of that, people are telling him, you got to drop out. You had a terrible debate. You sounded old. You sounded like you were lost. No chance we can win. The polls were somewhat starting to prove that out. Leads were opening up. There were even some polls in New York where it was getting closer. It was freaking people out. But again, I think as time goes on, the American people do the right thing and they say, all right, 2 old guys, 2 people I don't want to vote for, but one's a danger to this country and the other one actually did some pretty good shit. So let's just bite our tongue and vote for the guy who did some pretty good shit. So I think that's what would have happened. But again, it may not have. So what we're seeing now, and the complete 180 of at least the feeling of the Democratic Party for the most part, is nothing short of astounding. But Joe Biden was with Kamala Harris today up on the stage, and this is now Joe Biden sort of in the I don't give a fuck lane anymore. He's just kind of knows it's over for him. But here's the other thing about Joe. Joe wants Kamala to win. Joe's going to back her. Joe is not going to sit in a corner and pout like a baby. Now, there are reports that there are some strife now between him and Obama, which there kind of was for a little while anyway, because Obama originally came out and backed Hillary over Biden when Biden was running, and Biden was his running mate. And that caused a little bit of a problem between those two. And then from the reports that Obama originally came out and said Joe Biden's the nominee, but didn't really fight for him after that, reports say got to Joe Biden a little bit. But at the end of the day, Joe Biden, just a good-hearted, good, decent man, and was a phenomenal president. But this is him with Kamala Harris today. They were both on the stage talking about policy, and they were talking about the future and the economy and all this stuff. But this was his plan for Project 2025.
You may have heard about the MAGA Republican Project 2025 plan. They want to repeal Medicare's power to negotiate drug prices. Let Big Pharma back to charge them whatever they want. Let me tell you what our Project 2025 is. Beat the hell out of them. I mean it.
Joe throws in the I mean it. Joe's got that, still has that spirit. And again, at the end of the day, I'm going to miss the guy. I thought he was a great president, loved him, and he will be missed. But I also think, too, the way history looks at him and his legacy is going to look extremely kindly on him. Extremely. In fact, there was a list of all the presidents. These are historians that list the president from 1 to 45. And Donald Trump came in dead last. Joe Biden, just in his first year, entered the list at number 14. He started the list at number 14. So as time goes on, I assume he's going to move up into that top 10 because of everything that he accomplished. He accomplished so much, and I'm excited to just see how his legacy plays out. I'm really excited to see him on Monday night at the convention. And, the way he is taking everything in, and obviously it looks like he has accepted it. He has accepted what's going on, where he's at. And from this point on, he's just going to work his ass off, getting the drug prices down. He's going to continue to do things. Cancer research he's still working on. I think there was a $100 million amount of money that was going towards cancer research that he just did. So he is not stopping. He's going to continue until the day he is no longer president. And I just have this feeling that he's still going to be around. He's still going to be around for Kamala, because there does seem to be a good connection with those two. So speaking of Kamala Harris, she is on a roll right now, and it looks like this roll is unstoppable. Now, of course, any Democrat, any liberal, leftist, whatever you label them, would tell you that, hold on a second, don't ever think anything is over. Don't ever say that we're going to win. Don't ever say anything positive, because we live in negativity. We live in everything is going to go backwards on us and nothing's going to work out, even though that really technically has not played out. Hasn't played out at all. If you look at every election since 2016, pretty much everything has worked out for Democrats, everything. But there still is this internal thing of, doesn't matter, we still need to, proceed with caution. And we still definitely need to proceed with caution, because there's still going to be people out there who are going to vote for Donald Trump. And also, too, as time goes on, you just never know what's going to happen in these next couple months. What happens that could change everything like that? Because we saw already what has changed everything like that for Donald Trump and Joe Biden. I mean, it's literally Donald Trump he felt, and MAGA felt, that they were just walking to victory in November when Joe Biden was there. I mean, they literally were doing very little, and they were just saying, we got this in the bag. We're going to kill this guy. And then, of course, he drops out, and we know what's happening now. Now there is an excitement level that we haven't seen since Obama in 2008. And, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz together are just this very fun, very cool pairing so far. Everything, they just feel like when you watch these rallies, you see these two and they're up on the stage and they're talking. And when they introduce each other and they pass each other, they're excited. They're happy to be with each other. There was recently a nice little video that just came out. And this was Kamala Harris and Tim Walz sitting down talking about the time where she called him to tell him that he was going to be the vice president. And something a little bit interesting happened, a little funny story, but this is them two interacting about that day.
Hoping maybe we wouldn't have to.
I called you, Tim.
Yes.
You didn't answer, Tim.
I know.
What happened?
The most important call of my life. It popped up, and we didn't recognize the caller ID, and it went to voicemail.
Hi, this is Tim. I'm not able to answer.
There you go.
Responsible. Thank you.
Hey, Tim, it's Kamala. I really want to talk to you.
It is an amazing privilege. I'm excited. I just want to be part of the excitement that you're generating.
Well, we're doing it together, buddy.
It's fun.
We're doing it together.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a ticket that you could feel good about, right? I mean, there's nothing about these two where you go, I can't stand them. I mean, I'm not talking about the MAGA people. The MAGA people are going to hate them no matter what. But I'm just talking about if you're just a normal person that has, an ability to look at things objectively. There's nothing to really not like about these two. And quite frankly, I'm all with Tim Walz. If I see a number that's coming across my phone that I don't recognize, it, I ain't answering that shit either. So I'm kind of surprised he didn't have her number already, but maybe she made a phone call from a different phone. Who knows? But just, again, a nice little moment. And I don't see how this does not continue through November. I mean, they're going to have these big rallies. They're going to have this excitement. They're going to have everybody excited to go out and vote. You're having a lot of people who are registering to vote. You have a lot of people out there that weren't going to vote, and now they're going to. And there's two separate groups. One, they weren't going to vote because they didn't care. And now they see this sort of cool ticket that they feel like they could vote for. Or you had somebody who was that voted for either Trump or Biden before, and then they decided, I can't vote for either one of these guys. I'm sitting this one out. But now you're pulling those people back. There's been a huge shift in almost every demographic for Kamala Harris from what Donald Trump was leading against Joe Biden. So it is an exciting time. She also did get a really interesting endorsement. If you guys remember, the former professional wrestler and former governor of Minnesota, Jesse Ventura, he was also a Marine. He was on CNN and he had this to say about Kamala Harris.
To be selfish. A few years ago, I got the opportunity to see the United States elect its first black president. I didn't think that could ever happen. And they even re-elected him. Well, now I'm going to be selfish again. I've only got a few elections to go. I'm 73 years old now, so the window's closing. I want to be alive to see the first woman president of the United States of America and the first woman commander-in-chief, and we've got her right now.
You could watch anything like this, and it all depends on who's saying it, and you can either give it credit or not credit. But what we're seeing now is you're seeing the older white male. If you saw that man walking down the street and you didn't know who he wasn't the ex-professional wrestler, he wasn't the ex-governor, he was wearing his Marine hat, he was walking down the street, and you had one guess to guess who he was voting for, you would win $1 million. You guess one guess. Almost everybody would guess Donald Trump. But you're seeing now a lot of older white males who are getting on the side of Kamala Harris. And don't you dare look in the camera or look at me and go, you're one of those older white males. I'm trying not to look older, but it's all I'm trying my best. So, but anyway, I'm talking about the former Marine. I'm talking about a guy like Jesse Ventura, who you would not expect to endorse Kamala Harris. And you're seeing more and more and more of that. You were seeing, even when Joe Biden was running, you were starting to see the 65-year-old plus people starting to migrate more. Let's just put it this way. They were migrating away from Donald Trump, because the people who are 65 and older, for years, they were told by Fox News, Sean Hannity, and all these guys, we are the party of the Constitution. We are the party of the military. We are the party of USA and US, patriotic pride. And a lot of these guys who are 65 plus are not stupid. So when they continue to hear Donald Trump disparage the military, when they continue to hear Donald Trump say things like that he wanted to get rid of the Constitution or parts of it or whatever he said, they take that pretty damn seriously. And they're like, well, wait a minute. This is not what I signed up for. I did vote for you a couple times, but now you're talking real crazy shit. And this is not in my wheelhouse. This is absolutely not what I signed up for. And, this is not a game I play. So if I have to vote for somebody that I wouldn't normally vote for to get rid of this, that's what I'm going to do. And we're seeing more and more of that. And you're also seeing it now that I think Kamala Harris seems to be transcending the race thing and all this other stuff, is that you do have people that want to see the first woman president. Whether or not you think that she is the best fit and most qualified, that's up to you. You can make that decision yourself. But I truly believe that, you see a lot of people that are just now getting excited for Kamala Harris. They're done with Donald Trump. They're done with the whining. They're done with the lies. They're done with the vitriol and all this crazy stuff. I mean, Donald Trump used to say some really nutty shit back in the day, but it was more effective because it was hitting on more things that got to the soul of these people, that got in their brains. But now he's going off about sharks and boats and Hannibal Lecter and all this crazy stuff that some people are even starting to say, I don't know what we're doing here, because even his own supporters, they're all going on Fox News now and they're saying, what is he doing? I mean, is he really trying to convince a lot of voters out there that Kamala Harris doesn't actually have these people in her crowd and that it's AI? I mean, he literally is trying to do that. He's trying to convince this professional prosecutor is not smart. That's your plan? Best of luck, man. Do your thing. And there are a lot of people saying, I hope he gets off this. You hope he gets off it. You'd be hoping for a very long time. At this point, there is no way Donald Trump changes anything of what he does. Nothing. And in fact, you got that sense today. He had a press conference today. I don't get excited about these things. I don't really watch them because A, I know I'm going to see enough of the clips, and B, it's just such a waste of time anymore. It's the same garbage over and over and over again. He might say something a little bit different, but it's still in the same trash can. It's all just so stupid and makes no sense. But he was doing apparently a press conference, but from my understanding, he was rambling for so long that some networks cut away and said, well, this is supposed to be a press conference. When you start taking questions, maybe we'll go back. But this is Donald Trump today talking about how he had such a good life he didn't need to be in this at all. And, he really could have done things differently.
I gave up that life for a life of politics. I gave up all of these beautiful places that I have all over the world for a life of being abused by the fake news media.
Yeah. So that's him complaining about how he had this great life and he gave it all up to be president. So he gave it all up to be president because Donald Trump's the kind of guy that has an ego so large, he puts his name literally on every single building. And, he's got to put his name on buildings. By the way, a lot of people don't realize his name was on a lot of these buildings because he screwed up so badly financially with these buildings that the only reason why they kept his name on there is because he had a name. So they were paying him for royalties. So Donald Trump became more of a marketer than he became any kind of real estate guy. So let's make sure we understand that Donald Trump was never a really great real estate person. He was great at screwing things up so badly, but he knew how to market himself. So the banks were like, holy shit. I mean, we can't just let this thing shut down. So why don't we do this? We'll keep your stupid name on the building and we will pay you royalties. So that way we don't go completely under. And, that's how he kind of made a lot of his money. And then, of course, a lot of his money, most of his money came from his father passing away. So, but that's him, almost doing the whining thing. I'm getting this feeling that Donald Trump is in the OJ Bronco chase part of his presidency at this point. He is really starting to scramble. He knows that he's in big trouble. So he's trying to get sympathy instead of making amends with what he did. And neither one of those men, OJ Simpson or Donald Trump, would ever admit to the awful things that they've done in life. So what they do is they look to garner sympathy from those people that they know will give it to them. OJ had the same thing. You had a group of people who were just going to sympathize with OJ no matter what. Donald Trump's the same guy. He knows he has a cult following out there that is going to sympathize with him. And unfortunately for him, they make him feel like he's right and they make him feel better. But he doesn't understand. Everybody else doesn't buy into his bullshit. He stays in his bubble because it makes him feel better to stay in that bubble. And when he goes outside of it, he doesn't understand. So what does he do? He attacks. And that's his only way. And then he gets his sycophants to cheer and think that that's awesome. And that's, basically the cycle that we've had with him. But this is another thing. This is a question really at this point now for MAGA people. And I'm asking this seriously. I'm not joking around. This is him talking about supply chain. Now, supply chain was a big term used back in 2020, 2021 during COVID when a lot of things were shut down. So we had a hard time getting supplies in, for a long time because so many things were shut down and it was interrupting the supply chain to get these products to the United States or to wherever it is that we needed to get to. I don't remember. Everybody remembers the toilet paper shortage that we had. That was a supply chain issue. But Donald Trump still seems to think we have that issue. And I seriously want to ask MAGA this. I want you to watch this clip and I seriously asking, do you agree with this? And are you seeing the same thing?
Bring back our supply chains to stop costly supply chain disruptions. We have tremendous disruptions. I have it all the time, and I think you do too. We order things, and I keep saying, well, when's it getting here? Sir, there's a supply chain disruption. And I mean, you end up getting stuff like 3 months late now. I don't know, all these geniuses over here, I think we can say that. I'm not sure that you're necessarily as much into it, but they are. And I will say that very often, we have problems with supply chains where I'm waiting for things for weeks and weeks. And I say, by the way, whatever happened to it? Supply chain, sir, it's not coming in. And it's a terrible thing. Nobody ever thought a thing like that would happen to our country.
Seriously, is that happening to anyone anywhere at this point? There's supply chain issues. sir, it's supply chains. He's asking people, wait, where's my thing? He doesn't even say what the thing is because there is no thing. He didn't order anything that he was waiting weeks on for it to come in. And then he asked somebody and they said, sir, supply chain. First of all, if you were the ex-president of the United States and that truly was a supply chain issue, wouldn't you know that without having to ask some random person about why whatever the fuck it is you ordered didn't come in? Come on, man. And seriously, that's why I'm asking MAGA people, when you hear this, I mean, don't you at some point shake your head and go, this guy thinks that we're stupid. He thinks that we're fools. And he's saying this out loud because he knows there are people who will go around and regurgitate this nonsense that there is still supply chain issues. There's been supply chain issues in years. I have no idea what he's talking about. If anybody out there listening to me knows what he's talking about, please put it in the comment section. Let me know. I have no idea what he's talking about, that there are supply chain issues. But finally, he was asked about Kamala Harris, and he's taken offense to the personal attacks that Kamala Harris is levying on him. And you know, it's in this one, you got to give it to Donald Trump. You got to feel a little sorry for him because people are attacking this poor guy. People are calling him names, and that's just something that he doesn't do. He never attacks anybody. He never calls anybody any names. He's always been a pretty stand-up guy, so I will give him that. So I let's listen to his complaint here, and let's see if we can move on any further with it.
Many of your allies who want you to win in November say your current strategy isn't working, that you need to stop with the personal attacks on Kamala Harris and deliver a more disciplined message. Do you agree? And also, you added more people to your campaign today. Is that a sign of a shifting strategy?
No, I think it's a sign of we want to close it out. We have great people. Susie is fantastic, as you know, and Chris is fantastic. They're leading it. Corey Lewandowski's coming in. He'll be, personal envoy, or he'll be at some level. They're going to be,
Corey Lewandowski, by the way, I'm not sure he's going to enamor the woman vote, because he's one of these guys who was, I think he was cheating on his wife. He was cheating with some other, who is it? Hope Hicks. He was doing all kinds of crazy stuff with, but
doing a great job. Look, we've taken, with all of the abuse we've taken from the fake news media, all of this horrific abuse we take, and all I want to do is make the country great. All I want to do is have strong borders.
Poor guy.
Good education. We want to have choice for education. So important. So many different things. You would think it would be the other way. We rebuilt the military. We did so many great things. But that's the way it's been for Republicans, and I guess more so for me than anybody in history, and that's okay. Because we're leading in the polls. For the most part, we're leading in the polls. We were leading Biden by a lot. We're leading now. But I think when she's exposed, I think we're going to beat her by a lot more than we would have beaten Biden by. Because
I hope people remember he's saying this, because you know what's going to happen after he gets his ass beat in November. He's going to say that she was undemocratically nominated, that she should have never been the nominee, and he's going to complain about that. But he, in his mind, is leading the polls, and he's going to beat Kamala Harris worse than he would have beaten Joe Biden.
He had a little group of people that have been voting for him for a long time. She doesn't have that. People don't know who she is. As far as the personal attacks, because of what she's done to the country, I'm very angry at her that she'd weaponized the justice system against me and other people.
I don't know what he's talking about there. I assume he's saying that she was the one who had him prosecuted in all those cases, which A, is not true, and it's not true that Joe Biden did either.
Very angry at her. I think I'm entitled to personal attacks. I don't have a lot of respect for her. I don't have a lot of respect for her intelligence, and I think she'll be a terrible president. And I think it's very important that we win. And whether the personal attacks are good, bad, I mean, she certainly attacks me personally. She actually called me weird. He's weird. It was just a soundbite.
I mean, if this were a junior high school presidential race, that sounds to me like a speech that you would hear from one of the candidates. The fact that this is a grown adult doing this for the presidency of the United States is beyond concerning, and it's really embarrassing for this country that this is what we're dealing with. And I'm hoping, like I'm sure many of you out there who are watching this, that this comes to an end in November, that we don't have to put up with this anymore. I mean, Donald Trump, who continues to repeat the same garbage over and over and over again, and to some extent, it worked. He's gotten people convinced that the border is the biggest issue on the planet. He's got people convinced that people are coming in here and murdering, raping, killing. He's got people convinced of all kinds of things that just are not true. But again, it's the repetitiveness. However, The Daily Show the other night did a phenomenal little piece on Donald Trump and the way he does repeat himself. And this is the contrast on how he attacked Joe Biden and how he's attacking Kamala Harris. And this is good stuff.
Biden is a failed president. She was a failed vice president. The worst president in the history. The worst vice president in history. He is incompetent. She's incompetent. Everything he's touched has been bad. Everything she's touched has turned to bad things.
He can't talk.
She can't talk.
In many ways, he's worse than Bernie.
She's worse than Bernie.
Low IQ. He's a low IQ individual.
She happens to be really a low IQ individual. She really does. She has a very low IQ.
I mean, that's just perfect. And how do people, grown adults, if you're out there and you are a Trump fan, how do you listen to this? How do you listen to the same repetitive garbage over and over again? The stuff that he says, they're the exact same thing for everybody. The other thing too, for years, I mean, just literally think about it. For years, decades, we've been hearing that Democrats are coming to take your guns. I mean, let's just go back to starting with Clinton. And I don't even know if this was a big thing when Clinton was president. If it was, let me know. But Clinton was in office for 8 years, didn't touch any guns. Obama, now that was the big one, that Obama, when he gets into office, he is going to strip everybody of their guns. Nothing happened with guns ever. And it didn't even come close. There wasn't even a proposal to take away guns. Then Biden comes in, going to take away your guns. Nothing. Same thing with communism. We're not going to have a country anymore if these people take over. Clinton, 8 years. Obama, 8 years. Biden, 4 years. And you're probably going to get 4 years of Harris, but at least. And nothing. No communism, no socialism, no taking away guns, no stripping away of your rights. None of this happened. So at some point, are you going to go, why do they keep saying that? Because it's not happening. Or are you under the impression that it is happening, that it has happened? And unfortunately, I'm afraid that that's probably the case. But oh, baby Juggernaut's here. Hey, baby Juggernaut, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. I'm sorry Lana is not here with me tonight, but as always, I appreciate you joining and your comments and watching the show. It's very nice of you and everybody else too out there. Before I get to the last section here, I want to say thank you, first of all, for joining and watching. I really do appreciate it. If you do not mind, just at least there's 2 things that you can hit for me: subscribe and like. Okay. The like button is really not that big of a deal. So everybody can hit the like button if you don't mind. Subscribe, I know that's a little bit more of a commitment. So if you don't mind hitting the subscribe button, I would truly appreciate that. We're trying to grow everything that we can. But if you can at least hit that like button, that I would truly appreciate. Okay. Final thing before we get going here, I just want to remind everybody that at 8 o'clock or in that window, Lana will be doing her show live, the Quest Show. So you could go from here right over to her show live at 8 o'clock or maybe 8:05, could be 8:07 or some shit like that. She kind of hops on whenever the fuck she wants. So just, go to her channel, just sit in front of your computer until she hops on. But anyway, the final thing I want to do is, as I said in the beginning of the show, I get a lot of comments in the comment section and questions. and they want to do some sort of debate, or they want to have me answer these questions. And I will say, so there are some clips where I can get, I mean, tons. I've had some clips where there's been over 1,000 comments. And it is difficult, A, to answer all of them for a few reasons. One, because sometimes it's a lot of them. Two, because they're incoherent and I have no idea what they're talking about. Even if I try to do research on it, I have no idea what they're talking about. Three, it's the same questions over and over and over again. And then when you answer them the first 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, it starts to get a little annoying. And after a while, it's just like, I know it's a different person, but I just don't feel like answering this question over and over again. So tonight I am going to pick a few questions that I've gotten on the comment section. And these are questions that are typical of what I get. Some of them are comments, some of them are questions, but I am going to read some of these. And if anybody out there that is watching this that asks these questions, there's one thing that I want you to 100% listen to. Just listen to this comment. And from this point, please, well, I'm sure I'm going to hear it again, but do me a favor. I do not delete any comments at all. I don't care about your comments. You don't offend me. You don't intimidate me. You don't scare me with your comments. Put any comment you want. I don't know why they disappear, but I promise you I have never, ever, ever deleted any of your comments. Trust me, they are not smart enough for me to delete. Even if they were smart, that would be relieving because then I can answer some smart fucking questions. But now I'm about to answer some stupid questions. And look who's just joined me. Lana Quest from the Quest Show. Now I'm nervous. I'm nervous because usually she's with me, but now she's watching me without her. So I don't know how I'm going to continue this. But hey, Lana, thank you for joining. But okay, so let's answer some of these questions. Let's read some of these. This comes from Dank Amensky 2315. All I can say is what a bunch of effing morons. By the way, this is the tone of almost every question. WTF America, does gas and groceries not cost enough? Border, and by the way, these sometimes are difficult to read because there's almost no punctuation. Grammar is a little bit off. So sometimes there's a lot of run-on sentence, so it's a little bit difficult to read. Not cost enough borders, unprotected inflation out of control, crime running rampant, not to mention what they are doing in our schools. We are on the verge of World War III, brought to us by the same people saying Trump is the evil one. Wake the F up. People, these demotards are completely effing shameful. Any more, and criminals to boot. WTF, save America, vote for Trump. Let's go, Brandon. FJB, which I think means fuck Joe Biden. And hashtag say no to the hoe, which it is my understanding that means Kamala Harris is a hoe because at some point in her life she dared have sex with a man. So that makes her a hoe. And obviously that's the only reason why she's in the position that she's in. And completely forget about the fact that Donald Trump's in the position that he's in because of his daddy. So anyway, let's address a few of those things, even though it's kind of difficult. Gas and groceries, that's a reference to inflation. Now, I've talked about inflation numerous times on this show. And if you don't understand inflation, if you don't understand how the economy works, it's difficult to understand this. So let's just kind of break this down and make this as simple as we can. Gas and groceries are higher now than they were under Donald Trump in his last year. And the reason why is because COVID hit. Gas prices went down to almost nothing because nobody was driving. It is something called supply and demand. If you were in, I don't know, maybe 6th or 7th grade, you started to learn about supply and demand. I'm not sure how far Dank Amansky went in school, but the supply and demand basically says if there's a lot of demand for something, then the supply is going to be less. If there is less demand for something, the supply is going to be a lot more. So when there's a lot more supply and there's lower demand, what they do is they lower the prices a whole bunch to try to get people to buy this high supply of stuff. And there was a high supply of gas because nobody was driving. So that brought the gas prices down. Now, you're also going to hear people say gas was $1.50. It's never $1.50. The lowest it dropped to was like $1.97, and that was for like a month. It was a little bit over $2 for a little while. And again, that had a lot to do with supply and demand. You talk about inflation. People are convinced that inflation is still high. Inflation is not high. At one point, inflation in this country was at 9%, which is relatively high. Donald Trump will have you think it was the highest of all time. It wasn't, not even close. Inflation was up at 23% one time. But right now, it went from 9% down to now under 3% in a very short period of time. And it went down without losing jobs. And in fact, not only did we not lose jobs, we added jobs for 2 straight fucking years, and the unemployment rate was under 4% for 2 straight years running. That is unprecedented, what Joe Biden and how this administration handled COVID. You also got to give some credit to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve was pretty staunch on their stance on not raising rates. So they kept the same program going on. But I don't even think the Federal Reserve really took in and said, I don't believe that not only are we not losing jobs, we got the inflation going down. And guess what else is happening? Prices were going up for sure. But you know what else was going up? Wages were going up. And you know what that means? So the benchmark for the Federal Reserve is 2% inflation. But because the Democrats and many states voted for $15 an hour, guess what happened across the country? Wages started to go up. So when wages started to go up, it outpaced inflation. So when that happens, the new benchmark isn't necessarily 2%. We can have a benchmark maybe around 3%, and it may continue that way if the wages do continue to go up. So I hope that answered your question on the inflation Dankomansky. World War III, they brought up. Again, that's ridiculous to say that we are on the verge of World War III. That's not happening. All right. So I think I answered enough from them. Dr. Emil Schaffenhausen, 4683, says, okay, let's start with the border. This is another big one. Is the border a mess because of the Biden administration? And if it is that a good reason to support the VP who was supposed to be helping that crisis? So there's a couple of different questions there that we can address. First of all, the border's been a mess for decades, right? And the border's been a mess not because of a particular president. The border's been a mess because we have never really had an organized way of controlling the mass amount of people trying to get into the United States through the border. So the one thing that they would say is the mess is that there's been more people trying to enter the United States since Biden has taken over than when Trump. And that is true. But I think a large part of the reason for that is when Biden takes over, there are a lot of people in, let's say, Mexico who are trying to cross the border, and they hear over and over and over again that the new president that's in loves open borders and wants everybody to come in. So when that is being told to them over and over and over again, they hear this. So more people certainly are going to migrate because they think that they can get in based on who the president is. Joe Biden does not have a policy where he says, all these people are allowed in, you guys be quiet, they can come in whenever they want to. That is not how this works. That is not how it's ever worked. And Joe Biden just has a more humane way of wanting people to be able to come into this country because that's truly what the United States is all about. It is people migrating from other countries, different cultures, different races, different religions, coming into this country and being able to say, I'm an American and live that American dream. That's what the fuck this country is all about. Now, the one last thing I want to say about the border is me personally, I don't give a fuck about the border. How's that grab you? I don't care about the border. The border does not affect my life in one way whatsoever. And if you're going to sit here and try to convince me that illegal people come in here to this country illegally or undocumented, that they're getting all this free stuff, then you're going to have to try harder to convince me, because that's just not true. They don't come in here and get a bunch of free stuff. But you know what they do? They do come in here and they pay fucking taxes. So they actually pay more taxes than the fucking guy you want to vote for, Donald Trump. They contribute more to this society than a lot of people in this country who live here who don't work. So I am not going to be convinced that this is an issue that I've got to sit here and weigh as to whether or not I need to vote for one guy or the other because of what the hell's happening at the border. The border does not affect me in any way whatsoever. Undocumented immigrants, documented immigrants are not coming in here and killing, raping, and murdering people. In fact, undocumented immigrants, the rate of crime from them is significantly less than the people who work here. So Lana and I have talked about this before on this show. Gaslighting is a word we hear a lot. And I hear people say, don't gaslight me. You're not gaslighting me. You guys are gaslighting each other. You're not gaslighting me, because this shit don't work on me. So anyway, next question. It's really Jack Black has asked. I don't know if this is, I'm pretty sure this is not the actor, because I want to say Jack Black is a Democrat and he's already endorsed Joe Biden. But it's really Jack Black asked, oh, this is one of my favorite. Brian, what is a woman? What is a woman? Okay, so a woman is somebody that I'm sure that you have a very, very difficult time getting attention from. That's number one. But okay, so here's the thing. This is not a rabbit hole that I want to go down. This is ridiculousness. But in the context of what he's asking, a woman is, you have a biological woman, and then you have somebody that identifies as a woman. We talk about this. I go back to the same thing as the border. This has no effect on me, on my life whatsoever at all. I don't give a shit if you are a man and you want to identify as a woman. There's a, oh, you're telling me a man can have a baby? So there are women who transition into men, but they still have reproductive parts in their body where they can have children. So if you identify as a man and you have a child and you ask me, so a man can have a baby, the answer from that standpoint would be yes. But you know what? This is not something that I give a fuck about. There are 0.6% of the population is transgender. If you want to personally ask me, do I understand it? I don't. But it doesn't matter if I understand it, because transgender people exist, right? And we're not getting rid of them. They're not going anywhere. And I don't feel like I need to rail against other human beings because I don't understand it. That is stupid. That is short-minded. And it just... how does it satisfy you? What the hell do you care? The other thing is, you have this idea that these transgender people are coming in and they're coming after your children. What is it with all these boogeymen that you guys want to continue to create, that they're coming in to attack and rape and molest your children? This is just not happening. And again, that's the other thing that is so frustrating, is there's no proof to any of this stuff. None at all. And you guys, I can ask for proof and you go, oh, you know what's happening. I go, no, I don't know what's happening because I don't fucking see it. So I'm not going to sit here and put all my energy into transgender people, and I'm not putting all my energy into immigrants, because transgender people are human beings. Let's say I have a best friend, or I have a family member who has trans kids. What, all of a sudden am I going to hate them? I mean, I think about the parents of these kids too. I think about the suicide rates in the transgender community. And I think about a parent coming home and seeing their child hanging from the fucking ceiling because you assholes have a problem with this. So, what is a woman? A woman is whatever the fuck they want it to be. So that's what a woman is. I'm sorry, I'm missing some comments here because I had my Word document up here. Lowest board. That's the other thing. We have the lowest border crossings ever. And Greg Abbott can't even fill up buses. That is correct. I forgot to mention that too, by the way. When we're talking about immigration, just this last year, there's been the least amount of border crossings under Joe Biden. So July was the 5th consecutive monthly drop in apprehensions, along with the U.S.-Mexico border, and the lowest level in illegal immigration there since the fall of 2020 during the Trump administration. Absolutely. Again, this is just, it's so stupid. And we keep getting sucked down this ridiculousness as if it's true. We all know it's not. MAGA tactics, fear mongers. That's exactly right, baby juggernaut. And of course, an amen from Lana. I love that Lana just gave me an amen. That makes me feel good. Okay, let's get down to a couple more here. How much did Act Blue pay you to? Really, how much? Lana, how much does Act Blue pay you? I personally get paid by George Soros. That comes from Clem24U. George Soros pays me $211,312.12 per month. I don't know if Lana's getting paid by George, Act Blue, or both. You probably shouldn't tell me because that could cause a rift between us if you're getting paid more than I am. Or I hope hopefully George is paying you the same amount. And again, I ask that question because that's one that I get all the time. Okay, last couple ones here. So why do we need to elect her to get relief from inflation? She has been in office for over 3 years. What has the border czar done to help border and Main Street America? That comes from Drew NC 6196. I addressed some of these questions, but the one thing I did want to address is that she was never the border czar. She was put in charge to look into the beginnings of what some of the immigration that is happening from Central America. That's what she was really put in charge of. She wasn't put in charge of stopping border crossings. So, all right, last couple. Don't know if you two are a Saturday night skit or are you serious? This is again, how much is Act Blue paying you? Guess you two are enjoying inflation and not buying groceries or gas. Okay, so we did that one. Okay, finally the last one. This guy sent me a very long one, and I'm going to get through these very quickly. We have 8 minutes before Lana starts her show, so I want to make sure that I wrap up before her show starts. But this gentleman, Scott 1637, and some of these are things I've already answered, so we could skip over those questions. But one of the first things he says, this is when the moment when somebody says, I can't believe you vote for Trump. I'm voting for the First Amendment and freedom of speech. That's the first thing he says. So when I hear that, I always say, do me a favor, because you're saying you're voting against democratic policies, which means the Democrats are implementing laws and rules that say that your First Amendment and freedom of speech is being taken away. Show me one example where there has been any kind of government law or rule in which your freedom of speech has been taken away. If you could show that to me, I'm happy to maybe agree with you. Maybe you can convince me, oh my God, these Democrats are not letting anybody to say anything. In fact, Lana and I have talked about this before. People are saying way too much shit right now. I mean, you're getting away with saying some stuff that is so far off the fucking wall. Try following Laura Loomer or some of these whack jobs on Twitter, or watch some of these podcasts like Nick Fuentes and guys like that. So don't tell me about the fucking freedom of speech. The second one, I'm voting for the Second Amendment and my right to defend my life and my family. Once again, we talked about this earlier. Show me one bill where the Democrats are trying to strip you of your gun rights. One. Now, what the Democrats are doing, and in fact, this is not just a Democrat thing. If you ask most Americans, I think it was up to like 75% of Americans, all agree we should have some comprehensive gun laws and gun rules, not taking away your guns, but there are some things that we need to implement to at least try to slow down your child getting shot in the face by an AR-15 and is never going to come home again. I think that's pretty fucking reasonable. Voting for the next Supreme Court justices to protect the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Once again, first of all, Donald Trump is the one who said that he would do away with the Constitution. The second thing is, right now, this Supreme Court is by far the most corrupt in the history of this country. Look at Clarence Thomas. Look at Alito. Look at their wives. You're going to sit here and tell me that this is a Supreme Court that you're proud of? See, again, that's why it's hard to take you guys seriously. When there's specific proof that we can point to that this is a corrupt Supreme Court, and you go, no, that's why I'm voting for Trump, because we need a better Supreme Court. That's crazy to me. I'm voting for the continued growth of my retirement and reducing inflation. I've already talked about reducing inflation. Inflation has been reduced significantly and probably done in a better way than any other president could have handled it. Second of all, if you love your 401k, then you probably want to vote for Joe Biden. Did you check the stock market today? Close to fucking record breaking. You remember a week ago when everybody was telling us that the stock market is crashing and Republicans and MAGA were celebrating the end of the great economic news? No, that's gone. The stock market blew up today. The inflation went down, and we're getting ready to have rates cut. So again, these are things that you just come up with that you don't even really understand the answer. Finally, the last couple ones. I'm voting for a return of our troops from foreign countries and the end to America's involvement in foreign conflicts. Well, first of all, you are delusional if you think Donald Trump scares Vladimir Putin or Bibi Netanyahu or Xi Jinping. He is their useful idiot. He wants them in because he knows, they know that they can sucker this guy to do whatever it is that he wants them to do. He's voting for the Electoral College. I don't know, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we already have the Electoral College. Maybe he's afraid that we're going to get rid of it. But if we do, I'm all in favor of that, because it makes absolutely no sense that the most amount of people in the country vote for one person. They don't fucking win. That doesn't make any sense. I'm a big sports fan. I would be pissed if I was watching my team. They scored more points than the other team, and they said, nah, you don't win. Explain that one to me. I'm voting for the police to be respected once again. Police are respected in this country. And in fact, there's this idea that Black people hate the police. And I think Lana can speak to this better than I can. But Black people don't want the police gone. They want the police. They want a police presence. But what we don't like, and what anybody doesn't like, and what you shouldn't like, who asked me this question, are these rogue police who go out there and think that they are the king of the roads and they can do whatever they want. That is something that I personally, as an American, don't think is something that we should do. All right, last few ones. There's so many more, so I'm just going to go down to the bottom here. He's voting to fight against human trafficking. I don't know. I guess this is a QAnon thing that Democrats are child molesters. That is just so bizarre to me. He's fighting for freedom of religion. And I'm assuming if he's saying he's fighting for religion, probably for Christianity. Only if my guess is we're asking him if he's fighting for Buddhism, and he's fighting for Judaism, and he's fighting for every other religion you can name. I'm not sure if he was being honest that he would say that he was. But anyway, those are some of the questions I get. Maybe we can revisit those a little bit later. But anyway, Lana is getting ready to start her show. You could go over to the Quest Show. Please go over and see her now, because that's exactly what this guy is doing. I'm going to go right over to her show and watch her show. I hope you guys do the same. Please like, share, subscribe, do all that with this show. I do appreciate that. And then Lana will be back with me on Tuesday night, right, Lana? She'll be back with me Tuesday night at 8 o'clock, and you can watch us two together live, and we will see you then. But thank you guys for joining us, and go join Lana right now, because if you don't, I mean, you're missing out on some extremely good content. So probably better than what you just watched. So anyway, go watch her, and we will see you guys on Tuesday Night Live. Thanks.